Hey folks, and welcome to this Twilio tutorial. This is part of a series that will take you through building your first Twilio-powered messaging applications. Now in the last video, we bought a Twilio number and learned how to send SMS and MMS messages using Twilio. Now by the end of this video, you'll be able to respond to messages sent to your Twilio number. We'll be setting up a reply message that will dynamically respond to any incoming text message. In order to respond to messages with Twilio, we need to use the Twilio markup language, or TwimL for short. TwimL is an XML-based language which instructs Twilio on how to handle various events such as incoming and outgoing calls or messages. You may have seen code similarly structured with angle brackets when writing HTML for websites. Now, when we build a Twilio application, we use TwimL to communicate our desired actions to TwimL. Why don't we write some now? All TwimL starts and ends with a response tag. Within this response tag, we can have a message. We can even put multiple messages into a response if we want to send more than one reply. Alright, let's connect this TwimL to our phone number. To do this, we need to host our TwimL somewhere that Twilio can access whenever our Twilio number receives a text. And to do this, we'll start by using a TwimL bin. This is a serverless solution that Twilio offers to host TwimL for us. Let's head back to the Twilio console. Over in the TwimL bins page, we can create a new TwimL bin. Let's give it a name, and we're going to copy the code that we wrote earlier into it. Now there is a handy little code validation tool here, so we can check to see that there are no errors in the way we've structured our TwimL. When it all looks good, we can hit create. And then we head back over to the phone number that we brought earlier. Now we go and configure our number to accept incoming messages, and we'll configure it so that when a message comes in, Twilio will look up the TwimL bin that we just created. And then don't forget to hit save. Alright, now you should have it working. Pause this video and send a message from your phone to your Twilio number. It should respond with the message that you wrote. In just a few minutes, we've been able to configure our phone number to respond to messages. But sometimes we may want to generate our TwimL programmatically and maybe connect it to some other services or our own code. I'm going to show you how to use webhooks that serve TwimL from your own web server. This way you can have more control over the TwimL that you create. Now we can serve TwimL from anywhere that is accessible via a URL on the internet. Now in the next part of this tutorial, we are going to set up a web server to deliver TwimL instructions for Twilio to execute. Now for this part of the tutorial, I'll be using a tool called Ngrok. It is a really useful tool for web development. When we are working with webhooks, we'll need to have Twilio communicate with our web server. Now in a production environment, this is easy because your web server will have a public URL. However, we'll be working on our web server locally. Now, Ngrok creates a temporary tunnel between your localhost and the public URL. Now, anytime someone hits that public URL, it forwards all of that traffic to your localhost. So if you haven't done so already, I'd recommend pausing the video and downloading and installing it now. Once again, I'll be writing code with JavaScript and running it with Node.js. To follow along, make sure you have the Node.js runtime installed. I've also dropped links to the equivalent code in C#, Python, Ruby, Java, and even PHP. So if you prefer to use one of those languages, feel free to follow those instructions below. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Some of you watching may have never heard of webhooks before, and that's okay. A webhook is a user-defined HTTP callback. Essentially, whenever a certain event is triggered, a HTTP request is made to a URL that you specify. In our case, whenever your Twilio number receives a message, Twilio will make a HTTP request to your web server. When your web server responds with TwimL, Twilio will take that TwimL and follow those instructions on how to handle the phone call. I'm going to be using a very popular JavaScript web framework called Express. Now with Express, we can use a couple of lines of code to create a web server. But you don't have to use Express. You can use any web framework that you like, as long as you can respond to HTTP requests with XML. Now here is an example of a web server that simply says hello world. I've also dropped this code in the description below. When we run this code, we can head over to our browser and navigate to localhost 3000. You can see the words hello world. We have a server that is responding to GET requests and responding with the words "Hello World." But let's change things up a little. Remember Twilio's markup language, or TWIML? Well, that is a file format that we call XML. We need to change this root so that it serves XML instead of just plain text. To do this in Express, I just set the type of the response to XML. Also, right now this server only responds to GET requests, which is perfect for our browser, but we're going to be receiving POST requests from Twilio. Now, Express has a neat little feature that lets us accept both GET and POST requests. Now let's change the text that we send back. Hello World is not valid XML, but TWIML is. I'm going to go ahead and write TWIML just like last time. This time, we will send a message that says hello from the server. Perfect. Now let's restart our server. In the terminal, I'll use the Ctrl+C shortcut to stop my server and then start it again just like last time. Now if we refresh my web page at localhost 3000, it shows the TWIML that we just wrote. Now the server is ready to be used by Twilio, but there's just one problem. A localhost URL is only available locally on this computer. However, I need to make a URL that is available for Twilio over on the internet. Now again, under production circumstances, you would have a public server up and running. However, in the short term, I will be using the tool ngrok that I talked about earlier. ngrok creates a temporary tunnel to my local host from an ngrok URL. So using ngrok, I'm going to create a HTTP tunnel to my local machine's port 3000 using the command ngrok http 3000. ngrok is going to create a temporary URL that you can use. You can actually copy the URL into your browser, and you should see exactly what we had at localhost 3000. Alright, now we have a web server that can serve TWIML over the internet. We can give Twilio this URL and it will make a request to our server anytime our phone number receives a message. Back in the Twilio console, let's go to our phone number. We can update it so that when a message comes in, rather than using a TWIML bin, let's use a webhook and have Twilio make a POST request to the ngrok URL that we made. Don't forget to hit save. Now Twilio will make a request to our web server whenever we receive a message. Alright, it's time to pause and test this for yourself. Send your Twilio number a message and you should see it respond with the TWIML from this web server. Now pause this video and give it a go. Perfect. But what if we want to make our messages more dynamic? We'll probably want to add some conditionals or other programming logic to our server. Now, in your respective languages, you'll probably want to use the Twilio SDKs or helper libraries. These make it much more straightforward to write TWIML using syntax that you're already familiar with. Now, I'm going to install the Twilio Node helper library using the command npm install Twilio in my terminal. And then in my code, I'm going to create a new TWIML messaging response. And then I'll start by responding with a message saying, "Thank you for messaging this number." Now, I can actually access the body of the message that I received from the user. It's part of the request that Twilio made to our web server. For now, I'm actually going to tell them exactly what they said in the message they sent to me. Alright, if you've copied that code, pause this video right now and give it a try. You should receive two messages, one thanking you for sending a message, and then the second telling you what you had sent to your Twilio number. We can now use all our programming skills to respond differently based on the message we receive. Why don't we check if this message they sent us includes the word yes? What I'll do is I'll use a little bit of JavaScript to check the string of the body of their message and see if it contains or includes the word yes. And if it does, I'll tell them that they had said yes. If not, I'll tell them that they can say no. Now, this is just a very simple example, but you can begin to imagine some of the more powerful things you can do by scanning the text and looking for keywords. Congratulations! Now you have the power to dynamically control the TWIML that you create. Now at this point, the biggest limitation on what you can do is your creativity. You can receive messages and reply with whatever you want based on what they sent to you. Maybe you want to receive messages and reply what the weather is of that location or something else. I can't wait to see what you build.